Hey, welcome guys. I'm going live today with a lecture on about epigenetics and the impact that epigenetics has on the unborn. I'm gonna give you guys a second to come in, whether it's one person or two people, doesn't matter, or if it's zero, it doesn't matter that much to me. This is just a passion that I have to just learn things and then just share what I've learned to other people. I know some of these topics that I talk about aren't very, um, I would say they're not very popular, but I'm not doing it for popularity reasons. I just move with what moves me. And if I learn something, I like to just share it. And whether it resonates with many or just one, I'm fine with that. All right, so today I'm going to be giving you guys a lecture on epigenetics and the unborn and the impact that it has on the unborn. All right, give me a second here to share my screen here. So bear with me, guys. This is still new at this, so not gonna have everything done perfectly. But I think the more I do this, the more familiar I'll be with it. Yeah. My last lecture that I did, I had one person who wrote a comment and told me that they were very thankful and they liked the way I my instructional style. And thank you for that comment. And it's just one. All I need is one. Um, it's not like I said, I'm not doing it for popularity reasons, right? Right, give me a second here. Let me find where my probably should have taken care of this before I started, right? That would have been smart, huh? That would have been smart. I have to go back to my email and pull up the pull up my lecture. Give me a second here. Because it's funny, before I started, I felt like I had it up. I had the PowerPoint up, and it's like it just disappeared. All right, let me pull this up with slides. There it is. Should be coming up now in just a second. Yeah, there it goes. There it goes. Okay. So I'm going to share. You are currently signed out. Oh, I'm signed out. It says I'm signed out. Sign back in. I had to sign out so I could sign back into my other account here. Okay, here I am. I'm still live. 4 minutes and 17 seconds. So that's good. That's good. Okay. So here I'm going to share my screen. Right. Let me see. Okay, you guys, this is what you guys see. So hold on here. Hold on. Sharing for a second and fix this. This is weird. Never had this happen. It's asking me for request sent to Gmail. Okay, there it goes. Uh, share. I think I should be in now. Let me try again. Uh, Epigenetics and the Unborn. Okay. Okay, here I am. I think I'm in now. Should be fine now. Okay, there it goes. Finally. This is always good to remain calm. And this is my first time in not actually being ready to turn off. I know, because you're supposed to be a professional. But then again, I'm human. This is new to me, so I'm just trying to learn this. This is my second lecture, so the more I do, the better I'm gonna get at this. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen now. Hopefully it works this time. And here we go. There it goes. There it goes. Okay. So hopefully you guys can see my screen. All right. And today's lecture, as I told you guys, is going to be about epigenetics and the unborn. This is a science that's not really talked about that much by our mainstream science world, especially in the mainstream world of academia. Touching on this subject is it's sort of like a fringe science concept when you talk about epigenetics. And even when you look online, if you look at anybody who talks about epigenetics, they'll tell you that it's a science that hasn't really been studied yet, that it's new. It's nothing new. Our ancient ancestors understood the importance of epigenetics. I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into it, but I'm not going to get too deep into it because I think that a lot of the times people who do give lectures, they try to show you how smart they are versus trying to explain it in a way that could be understood by the layman, by the common man. And I'm common. I've always admired people who can teach me something that's complex, but break it down in a manner that's so simple that I have no choice but to understand it. Okay, so epigenetics and the unborn. All right. I've seen a couple of people come on and leave because, again, like I told you guys, these topics that I talk about are not popular. Again, I'm not doing it for popularity. If I was, I would do a live and talk about Deion Sanders and talk about Colorado Buffaloes because that seems to be what's trending. I'll get on here and maybe talk about sports, but there's a time for everything. And I think that there's times to talk about those things, but I also believe that there's times to educate and inform people. So again, welcome to the lecture about epigenetics and the unborn. Okay, so let's get started. So, okay, there it goes. Am I moving? I think I am. Hold on here. If I'm on the right screen. Oh yeah, I'm moving. I'm moving. You guys to be able to see what okay, perfect. Perfect. You take this out. You take this out. Take that out. Because I want to be able to see what you guys see. That would defeat the purpose entirely if I didn't do that. Right. Let me decrease this for a second. Okay, there we go. So now I have a dual on my, you won't see it on your end, but now I have two screens open and I can have a better review. I'm able to actually, you know, give out information in a better way. There it goes. I think I'm in now. I think I'm good. Okay, so epigenetics and the unborn. So let's go. Let's get started. So the content of this lecture is going to be broken down into several parts. Initially, I'm going to give you the definition of what epigenetics is. Okay, then I'm going to give you the state of a fetus in the womb. Okay, going to get into the formation of the fetus in the womb, the conception of the concrete to the fetus. So when I say conception of the concrete to the fetus, how the fetus conceptualized the concrete world in terms of they're in the womb, but how are they absorbing the environment around them? And how are they absorbing the things that they cannot see? All right. I'm going to talk about the amniotic fluid, talk about the placenta. We're going to get into how the sun impacts the amniotic fluid. And we're going to talk about fixed behavior of the fetus. Okay. Fixed behavior of the fetus. Are you guys ready? All right, let's go. Let's go. All right. So here. So what is epigenetics? All right. Epigenetics is the study of how cells control gene activity without changing the DNA. Now, the reason why epigenetics is very important, I'm slowing down the definition here because I just don't want to read it off and rattle that off to you immediately without you understanding what I'm trying to get at. It's the activity is a study of how cells control gene activity. So when people are talking about hereditary or talking about genetics, what's more important than genetics is epigenetics, but it's a subject that's not talked about very much. We oftentimes think that genes are fixed, which they are, but there are things that are done that can impact the gene, that can impact the cells that influence the gene. Okay, so epigenetics changes are modifications to DNA. So a lot of times people say it's just the DNA, you can't do anything about it. Yes, you can. That's where epigenetics comes into play. Environmental factors, external factors. All right. There are things that you can do to enhance or debilitate the development of a genome, which will impact your DNA. So epigenetics is a very important science. And I really believe that mainstream science is intentionally keeping this subject matter hidden. They're keeping it concealed because if that comes out, it would be an indictment on the way we live. It would be an indictment on the way that current civilization is constructed. Many of the things that we do, we'll start to rethink things in a much more deeper way because epigenetics kind of delves into the unseen. It's sort of quasi quantum physics. It sort of delves into that quantum science realm. Okay, so epigenetic changes are modifications to DNA that regulate whether genes are turned on or turned off. So you may have a family line that have a genetic disposition towards a particular behavior, all right, towards a particular way of thinking. But epigenetics can alter that, it can modify that. You have the ability to break generational curses by the use of epigenetics. Epigenetics is something that's within your locus of control, while genes are not. But the reason why I say are more important than genes because genes is more fixed. Epigenetics can actually change the thing that's fixed. Just like a tattoo, right? It's on your arm. You can't erase it. They say you can't. But what if there's something you can do to take it off immediately? Epigenetics, that's the impact of epigenetics on the fetus, of the unborn. It modifies genetics, okay? The term epigenetics, it comes from the Greek prefix epi, and epi means on top. So it makes sense. So I like to always look at words and the root where it comes from, because when I was studying epigenetics, I wanted to understand it seems like a very important science, but I was like, but how come no one's talking about this? We talk about genes a lot. We talk about DNA a lot. No one talks about epigenetics. And it made sense when I looked up the Greek prefix epi. It makes sense. Or in addition to the traditional genetic mechanisms of inheritance. It's on top of it, meaning that it's more important. It's more significant. It's epi. Okay. Now, let's talk about epigenome, because we know that epi means on top. That's a prefix from the Greek. So epigenome is during development. So epigenetics plays a role in epigenome. The terms are very similar. Epigenetics is more of the genetics, but the genome is a sequence of the genetics that leads to the shaping or the building of the deoxyribonucleic acid or DNA in a particular individual. So epigenome, during development, the DNA that makes up our genes, it accumulates chemical marks that determine how much or little of the genes is expressed. This collection of chemical marks are known as epigenome. These are chemical marks, okay? So epigenetics is very important. And all this information was received from the Center of Developing Child from Harvard University. Okay, moving along. So the state of the fetus in the womb. Okay, when a baby is in the womb, the baby is in its purest state. It's in its purest state. It's um it's perfect. I know a lot of the times we say there's no such thing as perfection. Well, that's a lie. A fetus in the womb is perfection. Now, that perfection is broken as soon as that baby comes into the external world. Once that baby is removed from the mother's womb, all perfection is lost because now you are inserted into a realm of man that does a good job of polluting nature, of corrupting things that are organic, toxic riddled air, the atmosphere, even the ozone layer is being depleted. So even the photons that are naturally good, that are naturally enhancing to the human experience, to the human biosphere, becomes something that's toxic because the ozone layer is being depleted. So now we're getting photons at a higher level that we're not supposed to be getting it at, getting to the point where we're getting UVC rays. UVC rays are very damaging to the skin. You know, one of the reasons why a lot of people are getting melanoma and skin cancer, but not too many melanated people are getting that. It's mostly Caucasian and pale skinned people who don't have uromelanin. That's the liquid melanin in the brain, by the way. Okay, so when a baby is in the womb, the baby's in its purest state. Babies in the womb see and capture every emotion holistically because you have to think of it that way. If a baby is in its purest state in the womb, it means that everything you do, the external factors, which plays into the role of epigenetics and which plays into the role of the epigenome, it means that whatever you do, that baby in its purest state is super hypersensitive to everything. And they're going to receive every emotion that the mother is going through, or even the environment that the mother is in. They will receive that emotion in a holistic way, in ways that we can't see it, in the way that we can't feel it. The purer a something is, the more susceptible that thing is to be highly contaminated because of its high level of purity. I'll give you an example. If I have a clear bottle of water that's crystal clear that you can see through, you're more likely to see a blemish in that crystal clear water because of how pure it is. But if I gave you a bottle of water that's kind of dirty already, it'd be very difficult to find one trace of dirt because the water is already kind of muddied. The whole thing is already impure. So when something is impure, you cannot see anything holistically with the naked eye because it's going to be hard to make that distinguishment between what's what because the whole water is contaminated. But if something is in its pure state, you're likely to see one element of toxicity, and that toxicity in that water is magnified because you can now see it clearly. Same thing with a baby in the womb. It can absorb emotions much more clearly than we can. We've been contaminated by living in this third dimensional reality. We've been contaminated by the foods we eat, chemical imbalances in our brain, the brainwashing of the matrix media, the holistic, non-rhythmic things that we do, adopting the Caucasian culture. We are we are far removed from being aligned with nature, so we can't even see things rhythmically or holistically, but a child can, because in that womb, that child is in its purest state. So I want you guys to remember that. And that's why the impact of epigenetics, meaning that the things that are not fixed, how you talk to the baby, the environments that you put the baby in, the kind of music you play to the baby while it's in the womb, the emotional state of the mother, the chemical state of the mother, biochemically. Is she chemically balanced? What kind of diet is she on? Is she getting enough sunlight? Is she meditating? Is she going out in nature? Or is she sitting at home all day just eating burgers and fries all day, eating all these toxic foods that are going to impact that fetus holistically? See, we get impacted by the things we do, but we don't get impacted holistically. I want you guys to hold on to that term holistically because it means the whole of you, your entire essence is impacted by what's happening to that pure state of existence of when that baby is in that womb. I want you guys to keep that in mind. All right, moving on, the formation of the fetus in the womb. Okay, so in here, when you're talking about the formation of the fetus in the womb, the fetus begins to form in the womb when a fertilized egg or zygote travels down the fallopian tube to the uterus. Okay, the zygote or the fertilized egg becomes a morula. All right, what is a morula? A morula is simply a solid mass of blastomeres. Blastomeres is spelled Blastomeres. And these blastomeres come from what is called a cleavage stage cells. And these cleavage stage cells, they're derived from a cellular organism. So a multicellular organism is a baby. A baby is a multi-celled is a multicellular organism. All human beings are multicellular organisms. We have numerous cells that make up our whole body, our tissues, ligaments, multi-celled. So that's just a fancy word. When it says the zygote or the fertilized egg becomes a morula, it means that it becomes a multicellular organism. And this is the formation of the fetus in the womb. If you look at the illustration here, you see that the fallopian tube is here. The arrows are moving this way, upward, and then it curves to the right. So it goes to the fallopian tube, day one. Day two, it's moving to day three, day four. Then it gets into the inner cell mass. Then the inner cell mass, this is where it gets into the blastocyte, the uterus area. All right. And this is where it becomes the morula. The morula becomes a multicellular organism. Okay. So that's the process. All right. So the formation of the fetus in the womb, you have the fetal growth from 8 to 4 to 40 weeks. So the embryo at 8 weeks, you have the fetus at 12 weeks, 16, 20, 24, and all the way to the 40th week. While the child is in his womb, everything that the mother experiences has a strong influence on those genetic markers that I talked about. Because if you understand epigenetics, what the mother is doing, how she's eating, how she's living, what she's reading, the kind of music she's listening to, she becomes the conduit or the harborer of the essence of what that child is going to become. Because no matter what, if there's a genetic, let's say there's a history of the family of people who get angry a lot, that mother has the power to turn that switch off. Yes, the genetic marker is fixed, but throughout all these weeks, while the fetus in the womb is being developed through these weeks, all the way to the 40th week, especially the embryo stage and these two stages here, from week 8 to week 12 are very important. I mean, they're all important, don't get me wrong, but these two here are very important. Okay? You have the power to modify genetics and impact those genetic markers. In other words, you can change genetic disposition. We have the power to do that. And that's why they don't make people study this. Because if women were able, if they actually taught this in schools, then people would become better. So the conception of the concrete to the fetus is powered by the amniotic fluid. Okay. So the amniotic fluid is full of electrolytes. This allows the baby to absorb their external environment in ways that influences their DNA. Again, that's part of the epigenetics because it's mingled in with those electrolytes that are inside the amniotic fluid. When we're talking about the baby being in the womb, the baby is literally in a sac, in a fluid. They call it the amniotic fluid, and this fluid is also known as Aman. Aman is holy water. It's known as Aman because our ancient ancestors, that's what they called it. And whenever you look at biblical references and it talks about holy water being born again, that's why the Bible has anatomical references to the human body. Believe it or not, the Bible is a science book mingled in with strong spiritual systems that are based on science, based on something called spirit science. It's a dualistic term that's merged into one. Dualistic terms because spirit science, you think to yourself that they're two different things. You have spirit and you have science, but they're not. They're the same thing. Science is just the unseen. Science is the seen thing. It's the thing you can see because science is what you can observe using your observable senses to to a conclusion or come to a judgment about something or come up with an hypothesis to see whether your hypothesis is true or not, right? That's the scientific part. That's what's knowing. That's why you get the term science from, or omniscience, or um, consciousness. That's talking about being aware, okay? Being aware. So the science is what you can see. The spirit part is what you cannot see. So spirit science is taking both concepts and putting them together. So when you're talking about our ancestors, when they talked about the holy waters, they weren't talking about coming out of water, being baptized, or finding a specific lake that's holy. We tend to take things so literally that we forget that we are scientific electrical beings, and how our body system is wired is is emblematic and also symbolic to the spiritual systems that we find ourselves in. But so many times we've cut off that connection and we look at the spiritual system as something that's excluded from the scientific system of the body. So when they're talking about being born again, it's not talking about going inside your mother's womb like a physical birth, or even a spiritual birth, like you're going to pray and be born again. That's not the way it works. Being born again means literally an awakening, but it has to start in the inside of you. Any generational curses that anybody has, you as the mother and the father, you too have the power to change that generational curse by what you do, by what you surround your kid with before the kid is born, not after. Before, I mean, you can still impact the child after it's born, but it's much harder because those fixed genetic markers are there like a tattoo. It's going to be hard to peel that back. You start doing the work early while that child is developing. Developmental stages, those developing stages where that fetus is in that womb, especially that 8 to 12 week span, very crucial, very, very crucial. All right. So the amniotic fluid was known as Amon, holy waters. Why is it holy? Because there's a pure organism in that, is a multicellular organism that's in there. Okay. That's why it's pure. So every child, every human being is divine because you come from the holy waters. The holy water is the amniotic fluid. See, we tend to give power. We forget that there's power in the scientific things that don't have arms and legs. We tend to think that God is some big guy in the sky with a big ass beard and a rod in his hand. And he's just floating around in the sky, seeing who's doing good, almost like a Santa Claus figure. We have become fools and idiots in the way we view spirituality. I'm here to tell you that God is a power, God is a force, God is a frequency, God is a vibration. God does not have arms or legs. God does not have a nose, doesn't have an eye. So when you're talking about the scientific things in the body, something as crucial as the amniotic fluid, if you want to talk about being close to God, that is the fluid of God. The amniotic fluid is the fluid of God in essence, because life emerges from that fluid. We all look at God as a life giver. That's why the ancient people viewed God with a feminine essence. No one says Father Nature. We all say Mother Nature because we know that mothers nurture, they give birth, they breastfeed the child, they protect the child. Okay? The fetus is hypersensitive to everything and every emotional state. I stated that earlier. When a multi-celled organism is in a liquid that's closest to God, that's the essence of God, known as the amniotic fluid, aka holy waters. Why wouldn't you think that child would? Why do you think that child wouldn't be hypersensitive to every emotional state? They're highly empathic at that point. They may not be conscious, they may not be aware, they may not be awake, but those genes are being impacted. The DNA is being changed by what that child is receiving before the fetus even comes out of the womb. Which is why I'm not going to go there because I don't want to get my channel banned like I did last time. I have to be very careful with some of the words that I use. Okay, so the conception of the concrete to the fetus, powered by the placenta. Okay, I know it sounds like a loaded word. The conception means how you see things, how you conceive them, how you conceptualize something, because conception feeds into your perception. Okay, the concrete means that what you can see physically, not something abstract, not in thought, but something that you can see, all right, to the fetus is powered by the placenta. But the placenta has the amniotic fluid in it. You can't escape it. The amniotic fluid and the placenta are one and the same. But let me explain. The placenta belongs to the fetus. I know a lot of the times we say, a woman would say, that's my placenta. That's not your placenta. The placenta belongs to the fetus. This is why you know babies are from God and babies are God in purest form, purest innocence. So much so that we serve them. But we say we serve them because they are helpless. Are they? Well, yeah, in this third dimensional realm, they may be helpless, but they come from a source that's pure, the amniotic fluid, the 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 womb, the purity of that womb. So the placenta belongs to the fetus. It's not the mother's. It's the fetus. The fetus is protecting itself. The baby in the placenta is likened to the yolk of an egg. Okay? So when you think about the baby in the placenta, the baby is like the yolk of an egg. The white part of the egg would be the amniotic fluid. The white part of the egg would be the amniotic fluid, and the shell of the egg would be the placenta. All right? So that's how it is. It's layered. The impact of the amniotic fluid on the fetus. All right? I kind of mentioned it already. The amniotic fluid is riddled, it's filled with electrolytes in the amniotic fluid. And this fluid gives off sparks like lightning to the fetus, and which is why the fetus can absorb things holistically in ways that we can't in the natural realm. Okay? It's very hypersensitive, very sensitive. The fetus associates certain colors from the spark emitted by the electrolytes with certain emotions. So certain emotions from the mother have certain colors. I don't know what the colors are, but we view things with we view things underneath the electromagnetic spectrum. All right, and that's evident inside the womb. So if a mother is angry, let's say the color is yellow for anger, the child will see yellow and associate anger with that color. We don't associate emotions with color. Now, of course, we watch cartoons, and when somebody's mad, we say, oh, they turn red. Pale skinned people turn red. When I'm angry, I don't turn red. See, we've turned everything to the way the Caucasians want to define it. No, we don't see color when we see anger. When we see people's emotions, we just see it for what it is. We just see it. We conceptualize it in the concrete realm. We just look at it and we see it. We don't see color. The child, the fetus does, because color is part of your reality. Color is how you absorb your reality, and color is how you make sense of your reality. All right. The different colors of the world is how we interact with our culture, interact with our biosphere, the colors that we see. All right. It actually impacts our mood. Imagine if everything was just gray. It's a reason why we have trees that are green, and we have lights, and we have the yellow sun, and we have different colors that we see. All those things impacts our day-to-day lives. So the fetus associates certain colors from the spark emitted by the electrolytes to certain emotions. That's part of them receiving emotions holistically. The pH level of the fluid, the pH level of the fluid changes when the mother feels stressed. Stressed. So what is the pH? The pH is the potential hydrogen. That's what pH stands for, potential hydrogen. And hydrogen atoms infused with photons from the sun are responsible for the creation of all things. So it's very important that a mother gets good sunlight. Don't run from the sun. Many pregnant women, they stay inside all the time. They're too tired to do this. You have to get out in the sun. Again, hydrogen potential pH. Your potential hydrogen is altered when the woman is stressed. Okay, the hydrogen atoms infused with photons, all right, from the sun are responsible for the creation of all living things. So if you have a living thing inside of you, how much more can that child be accentuated to its optimal capacity in terms of its existence? That's why certain kids come out of their geniuses. You say, hey, how did this mother who struggled? She was poor. She was always out in the streets trying to earn a living, or beg for money. She was always doing. Why do you think that child is so smart? Maybe because she was exposed to the sun. Maybe she wasn't locked in the house looking at television all day. Maybe she wasn't exposing her child to, synthetic infrared light versus getting the true ultraviolet light from the sun. You know, they're even trying to block the sun nowadays. I wonder why. Man has totally gone against nature. So yeah, the pH levels of a fluid changes when the mother feels stressed. All right. So the potential hydrogen. So if the pH is low, depends if the potential hydrogen is low in the woman, it's going to affect the child. If it's high, it's going to affect the child as well. These are part of the epigenetics that are occurring as the formation of the genes are occurring as well. But they're gonna impact the genetics. It's, remember, it says epi, the prefix, it means on top of epigenetics, then the genes, then the DNA. But it starts with epigenetics. All right, so nature versus Caucasian, life versus death. Okay, so um, when you look at nature, when I say nature, these are things that are naturally provided by nature. You can't go and find it. Man can't create it. Man cannot create the amniotic fluid. That's something that the fetus creates to protect itself because it knows it's coming into a dangerous world. Organic things, that's from nature. Man doesn't touch it, it's organic. The placenta is organic. That's the child's placenta. That's the fetus's placenta, not the mother's. Breast milk is natural. Natural foods. Now I say more, hence natural. The fact that I have to actually put the word natural to describe foods, the fact that I have to have an adjective to describe foods lets you know what kind of insane reality that we're living in. We are living in a death cult. All right. Sunlight. Man can't create sunlight. They try. They try these types of, so-called nuanced technology to replicate the same generating power that the sun has, but hey, they can't do it. Women is supposed to be squatting to have their child. That's the natural way to have a child. So everything that I just read to you is the good that nature provides. Now, let's talk about what the Caucasian provides, which is analogous to death. And this is not racial. I'm not being a racist. I'm being factual. Because our ancestors, from a Afrocentric mindset, from a rhythmic mindset, from a civility mindset, from a spiritual mindset, from a holistic mindset, we operated with everything that I just read to the left on nature. That's the way we operated, and we understood the importance of those things. We were ethnocentric, and even the medicines that we used back then were all steeped into herbs and plants. Everything was from nature. Okay, so let's look at what the Caucasian provides. They provide synthetics. They love synthetic drugs, synthetic atmospheres. They like to replicate what nature does, but without having the actual substance. They're the people that give you grapes without seeds in it and call it a grape. They're the ones that grow crops using all sorts of technology, but not using the natural microbiome from soil in an organic way to produce fruit. They love synthetics because it's for profit. They love inorganic things because it's for profit. You can mass produce it. See, organic things take time. They don't like that. They love artificiality. They love formula. Rather than breast milk, they love formula. Oh, it's for profit. They love processed foods, the opposite of natural foods. They love infusing or using infrared light to try to stimulate certain things. A lot of the times you go to a doctor, they say, oh, we're going to use infrared technology. Just use the sun. Just use the sun. You don't have to use infrared light. They love using C-sections and the proper posture of birth. A woman laying on her back is not the proper way to have a child. You're supposed to squat. Even Isis, the mother, the generation of Isis, according to the Sumerian tablets, when she had Adam, she was squatted. Adam, she squatted. Our ancient ancestors, they all squatted. And of course, you know, our culture, we love vaccines and we call that medicine. Okay? So you pick and choose. You're going to pick nature or you're going to pick death. I say we pick nature. All right. Thank you guys for listening.